A couple of weeks ago, I posted my video on my first impressions of the new firmware 2.0 for the LEICA SL2. And somewhere in that video, I said that I skipped the step where I can store my user profiles on the SD card. And I got some comments from people who said, can you not do a quick tutorial on user profiles in general, on customization of the LEICA SL2 and how to basically preserve settings or how to get different settings for different shooting situations. And that's what this video is all about. I will try to do this quickly, not to get people bored who watch this, but maybe it's useful for some people who want to learn more about the LEICA SL2 than just shooting in certain modes and customizing it for your individual piece of technology and gear you use in your photography workflow. Let's get started with the video. So let's quickly talk about customization first. The LEICA SL2 has 4 buttons which you can customize and a lot more to customize. So here is one button on the top, here's another button on the top. Here is a button which typically toggles between EVF and live view on the LCD. And here is a function button, clearly is labeled as FN. And customizing these buttons is very simple. Let's start with this one here. You press and hold. A menu pops up. You can scroll down in this menu and choose whatever you want. Let's say you want to have here film style, and then you choose it. And next time you just push the button here, you can choose your film style here between the different settings which are pre-programmed on the camera. I typically have on that button here ISO. I think that's the most convenient way for me to access sensitivity very quickly. So let's press and hold again. Let's go up in the menus to ISO. And now this is an ISO button. If I push it, I get my ISO here and I can choose whatever I want. And as I said, that's for me the most convenient way to customize this button here. You can in the same way customize the button on the left-hand side next to my ISO button. You can even customize this button here, which, as I said, toggles typically between EVF and LCD. So if you press and hold, you get 5 options. So you can have it to toggle between EVF and LCD, which is the standard setting, but you can also have it to format the card. I'm very careful, even you get a second question whether you really want to format your card, to put a format card menu entry on one of those quick access buttons. But you know, maybe you want to have that if you need quick access to formatting your card. I have chosen this to be a joystick lock because sometimes I don't like to be in a situation where I accidentally push the joystick and then my field, for instance, for autofocus is moving around. So that's my choice here. So if I push that button now, I can toggle between joystick lock on and off, and currently it is off. This one here in the same way, you have here much more options than on this button. So I use this to toggle between info levels, and I show in a second how you customize this. So if I'm now on live view, I have the lens cap on here so that people can better see with a dark background what's going on the LCD. And this is the, let's say, the information I overlay on my live view with focus peaking on, gauge or level metering, the 3x3 grid, and the information bars on top at the bottom. If I push this, I have one information less. That's the way I customized it. If I push it once more, I have even less information, but still focus peaking and the info bars. And if I push it once more, I have only focus peaking and basically a blank screen as a live view, which means there are no elements which could distract me from my image composition. If I push the FN button once more, I come back to the original view. And the way to customize this is you go into menu, and you go to page number 5 and then into camera settings. And in camera settings, you see capture assistance. And if I press now, I have chosen here 4 profiles to be on. And each profile is individually customized in the way I wanted to have it. And if you remember the first screen here, the first information overlay on the FN button was basically showing level metering or gauge, was showing focus peaking, info bars at the top and the bottom, and the 3x3 grid. And that's exactly what you see now here. If I go into that, you see here info bars on. That's the bars at the top and the bottom. There is a grid. I have focus peaking. I have level gauge. I do not have a histogram. And I have the info bars. And that's basically what I have here on the info profile number 1. And if you remember back, the info profile number 4 was the most, let's say, plain vanilla one where I had not a lot of information on it. let's call it the minimalistic setting, where I only had focus peaking on and my autofocus field, and the rest was blank as an overlay to show me the most of my image composition. And if you look into that now, how this is customized, you see focus peaking is on, and that's basically all. Nothing else is on. And if I now go back into the live view here, that's the setting which we just looked under profile number 1. Then there is 2, which I didn't show, but the level gauge is then disappearing. There is profile number 3, and then there is profile number 4, which is the one we just looked into, where everything is switched off, but focus peaking is on. So that's the way how to customize this. And I think that's very convenient because I know what I have here. Always a little less information. That's the most information in terms of overlays. A little less, even a little less, but still the info bars here. And then absolutely nothing which could distract me from image composition. Just focus peaking so that I see where my focus is sitting. Now, user profiles can be found in the menu under page number 4. And they are here. And you see there is a default profile, which is set up by Leica. And the default profile is a profile for beginners. It puts the camera in the most automatic mode. And you can do fantastic images with that. And I think that even beginners can use a sophisticated camera like the Leica SL2 and then hopefully gradually migrate from automated photography into semi-manual and manual photography, which is a wonderful trajectory if people are encouraged enough to do that journey and have never done it before. I also set up another profile, which is my math photographer profile. That's my most common profile. If I activate this, it's actually active at this point in time. You see, if I shoot handhold, typically in the city or where I'm, on my way, I'm in aperture priority. I have the widest open aperture setting of 2.0. That's the upper Summicron 35mm here. Because the lens cap is on, it has a long exposure time. ISO is 100, which is the native ISO of the sensor. I'm in single shooting, autofocus single. I'm on field autofocus, and I have spot metering here and a bunch of other settings, which I customized in the camera before. And as I said in that video about the firmware 2.0, I typically do this from scratch when a new firmware is released because I want to understand what new menu entries are there, and I have no problem in spending 15 minutes in customizing my camera again. But if I have done this with a new and up-to-date firmware like I did here, then I store it under a user profile, which I did here under Math Photo. It's not Math Photographer because there are not enough letters available, but Math Photo is clearly good enough for me. Now let's see how to actually activate another user profile. Let's go into the settings. Let's say this is my standard setting here, which I use for handheld photography. Now let's say I want to have another user profile, which I use for night photography on a tripod. So I would go here to from aperture priority to manual mode. I would still keep my aperture wide open. I would from ISO 100 go up to, let's say, an ISO of 400. I would go here from single shooting to timer. So this is now the 2-second timer here. And let's say for the time being, that's it what I want to change. Now, if I go to page number 4 and the user profiles, I can actually store now my settings under one of the free user profiles. So I can say here, save as profile. I go into, let's say, user 5, and I say, yes, I want to store that profile. So now this is stored. If I now go back from night photography on a tripod to my street photography, I go again into user and I activate Math Photo again. And now you see if I go back into my status screen, it's back to the original settings I had under Math Photo. If I want to go into the night shooting situation I mentioned before, I go to user number 5, activate that. By the way, then it says here active and no longer next to Math Photo. And then you see now it has updated into manual mode. It has updated into 400 ISO from former 100. It has the timer set and so on. So all these settings are preserved. So I think that's pretty cool, but the story doesn't end here. Let's say we go back into user profiles, and let's say user 5 is a little bit unspecific for me. So I can also go to manage profiles now and can say rename profiles. And now let's go to user 5. And let's say user 5 is no longer good. Let's call this tripod. Actually, let's use one capital letter only. Then let's go back and let's say tripod. So I can store this now. And now you see, if we go back into user profiles, the profile or user number 3 is now called tripod. So I know exactly that's my standard shooting situation. That's my night shot tripod situation. And I can toggle between the 3 in the way I demonstrated before. Pretty cool, huh? Now, what I also can do is I can store them to my SD card, and that's even more cool. So let's say export profiles. I go to yes. If you do that, everything which is stored in terms of user profiles on your SD card will be overwritten. So if you go back to here, now exactly this page and these settings under these profiles will be stored on the SD card. You need to be aware of that because whatever you change, it always stores the complete set of user profiles, which is user, in my case, math photo user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is tripod now, and user number 6. So it always stores the whole set. Everything else in terms of user profiles on the SD card has now been overwritten, and that's maybe important to bear in mind, but it's pretty cool. And what option I also have is I can also import profiles, and that is very useful. For instance, if you break your camera and you have to send it in, then you get maybe a replacement, then you can just upload or import your profiles and you don't have to install your settings from scratch again. So there is a lot of optionality here which people can use. So at the end of the video, let's do the hardcore test here and let's go into menus in the settings, and let's say we reset the camera. Maybe better you check before if you really exported your profiles. So let's do this again just to be on the safe side and to remind people that being on the safe side is always better. Let's say export profiles. Yes, so now they should be on the SD card. Let's go now to camera reset. Let's reset the camera. Reset user profiles. Yes. Reset everything. No, not the image counter. So please restart the camera. So let's switch on the camera again after the hardcore reset here. You see that little animation like always when you installed a new firmware or when you did a factory reset of the camera. And let's skip the date and time screen that cannot be stored somewhere, but you can adjust this easily by connecting to your smartphone. So let's go out of this one here. And now if we go on the page, first of all, my favorites are all gone now. You see this. There is no more favorites page between the status screen and main menu page number 1. If you go to user profiles, they are all gone. All the work we did to customize this is gone, unfortunately. But now what we can do is we can go to manage profiles and we can go to import profiles. And now it says, do you want to import the profiles you have on the SD card? I'm saying yes. And that should actually have worked. Let's hope and pray. So here we go to 4 user profile, and you see I have my math photo back. I have my tripod back. It's all there. Let's start with tripod. And see, it has the timer, it has the manual mode, it has the ISO of 400, everything as we set it up before. And also we did a hardware factory reset here. We get all these profiles imported or uploaded from the SD card again, because they have been stored. Let's go as a last check, and then we stop the video here to my usual handhold shooting situation, math photo. We uploaded this now and installed it as the settings, and we look at here and see everything is there. We have aperture priority, widest open aperture, ISO switched from tripod 400 to math photo 100. We have autofocus single shooting, the timer is gone, we have single shooting here now, everything, spot metering, everything is as I had it before. So there's much more to customize on this camera. Let's go back into customize control. First of all, I think we looked into the edit favorites already. On the joystick side, you can distinguish between autofocus and manual focus mode, and you have different choices here, like this is autofocus lock or auto exposure lock, or both are locked. So there are lots of things you can do here. On the wheel assignment, if we go into that, you can actually for every mode, so program mode, shutter priority, aperture priority, manual mode, you can basically declare what the wheel on the rear and on the front should do. So I think a typical situation is that for program mode, I want to have here my program shift, and I have exposure compensation on the front wheel, which is the one on top here. And let's go down here. I think shutter speed as the priority wheel here is good. Aperture on aperture priority is good. And on manual mode, I like to have here aperture changes. And here I like to have shutter speed or exposure time. So that's very meaningful. Let's go back into, you can do the same for the manual focus mode. And then the thumb wheel direction is also interesting here. So this is the thumb wheel and this is the front wheel on top of here. And you can basically say, if this is changing the aperture, do you want to stop down by going or turning the wheel to the right-hand side or to the left-hand side? And that is just done by toggling the joystick, sorry. So here we go. And I think it's more natural to the right-hand side to stop down, but that's a matter of taste, of course. And the same for the front wheel direction. Do you want to stop down by going to the left-hand side or the right-hand side? And on the exposure time, I think it's more natural to stop down if you go to the left-hand side. And again, matter of taste. You can judge about that, what best possible suits you. So that's it. I hope that was useful for you. If you liked that video, do not forget to drop me your thumbs up. And if you liked my channel, please subscribe. Stay tuned on my content. Thanks for watching. Peace out.